to Scott Pilgrim versus the podcast, a podcast where we take down Scott Pilgrim. And this episode, we are going to absolutely destroy the first episode of Scott Pilgrim Takes Off on Netflix. Scott Pilgrim's Precious Little Life. The first episode, if you haven't seen it, spoiler warning on. I'm Alex.
We're going to punch this thing so hard it's going to turn into money. You know what I'm talking about?
I'm Pete. What the fuck just happened?
I'm Justin.
Oh, thanks for letting us know your name. Yeah, listen, serious. I know I just
What
said
the
spoiler.
fuck, man?
Hold on. Serious spoiler warning on here. Now, I have been so excited to talk to you guys about this. I watched this episode of
Show's over.
What?
And
Show's over.
lost my mind at the end of this episode.
I haven't been the same since.
And I really wanted to get, I almost wanted to watch you guys watching this episode just in terms of getting your live reaction here, because I will tell you legitimately, so as press, we got the screeners in advance. I was like, cool, I love Scott Pilgrim, excited to check the show out. Watched the first episode, and at the end, I was like, for 2 solid weeks, I couldn't continue because I was so flabbergasted by the end of that episode.
Well, I feel like it's either you have to give it some time to be like, or you have to press play, button mash that
I'm
shit
freaking out.
into the next
I
episode.
really wish I could have watched the next episode because I am freaking out.
So
Everything was the same, and then this crazy curveball at the end, and it's driving me fucking nuts, man.
I know. So let's just put it out there, and then we can talk about it a little bit more. But and I want to get general impressions of the show.
Sorry,
and the
just
episode.
real quick before we get into it, we're talking about the fact that it's Netflix instead of Amazon for Ramona's job, right?
That was huge. DVDs? What are we even doing here? And also, it was Amazon. It was Netflix.com, not Netflix.ca, which is disgusting, honestly.
Yeah.
What?
Wow.
Ramona is now working. She's delivering DVDs for Netflix
I know,
instead
I
of
know.
Amazon.ca. That's what we're talking about. That's the thing
Yeah, I
you're
know,
upset
but-
about too, right?
No, that's not. I could give
No?
a shit about that little detail.
Then what are you so mad
Okay.
about?
Were you, well, hold on. Were you upset about the updated conversation between Ramona and Scott where he talks about the 2 Sonic the Hedgehogs? Because that I was like, I get it. It's meta. You're talking about the fact that Michael Cera did the part in the movie and now he's voicing it. But come on, this is a classic scene. Give me the classic scene. That's what you were upset about, right, Pete?
No.
Paku Man.
Yeah.
Paku Man.
No, we're of course freaking out about the end of the episode.
Also, I wasn't freaking. Well, I am kind of freaking out. The Bill Hader isn't doing the voiceover for this stuff, which is a little disappointing.
No, Bill Hader did not come back. Instead,
There a ton of people came back, but you couldn't get Bill Hader.
I think everybody. Well,
Yeah, Stephen Johnson is the new narrator who says Toronto, Canada, not too long
I mean,
ago.
I love that guy, but I was kind of like,
you
little
love that
bit.
guy? You
Well,
love
it's a-
Stephen Johnson?
he does
You
a great
love
job.
him?
He
Pete
does a
runs
great
a
job.
Stephen Johnson fan site. You should check it out, stephenjohnson.ca.
Yeah, it's under the hater banner, right? And Reddit? Because you
But it was
hate
a little
Hater, you
disappointing.
love Johnson.
That it wasn't Bill Hader. You know what I mean? It's only
Yeah, I think
a
that's
little
our big
voiceover
takeaways
work.
for the
You
episode.
couldn't
Bill
get
Hader
15
wasn't in it, and that's pretty much it. Let's just very quickly talk about the ending here, just to put it out there so we're stop dancing around it. But we get the fight between Matthew Patel and Scott Pilgrim at the end, and Matthew Patel kills Scott at the end of the episode.
Love it.
Here's my big takeaway here, which is absolutely wild, and obviously we'll talk about the future episodes, but I can't believe they kept the secret. As far as God, I can't believe they kept a secret.
I agree.
If you're watching on the video recording, the stupid Zoom emoji things,
You
that come
can't
up.
figure out how to
I
shut
can't
it
turn
off.
them off. I can't.
That's
it's driving me
hilarious.
crazy.
Oh,
Anyway,
old person problems.
Yeah, he kills Scott. I can't believe that this did come out, and I can't believe that they successfully lied to us about what this show is for this long. You know?
Lied. Alex,
Well,
what an accusation.
Wait a second.
No,
This
I
is
think
like
complimentary.
back in the
Lied
day.
complimentary. Because they were
Yeah.
like, yeah, we're just going to kind of remix it a little bit. You know, we got the cast for the movie. We're going to look at characters in a different way. Scott dies.
No.
Yeah.
Because in comic books, you have that kind of thing where I freak out and you guys are like, you've never read a comic before? It's just a weird twist at the end that gets you, and then you got to pick up the next issue and then everything's fine. Why aren't you saying that? Instead, you're like, it's all
He's
over.
died.
He
It's
can't-
different. Once you turn into money, it's over. Once your money, that's like finding the corpse.
Here is where the rabbit hole I went down. I was like, oh my God, this can't be how this ends. And then I was thinking, okay, how does he get a one-up? Because we know in the movie he gets a one-up and stuff, also in the comic. But I was like, oh, he's got to break up with Knives first in the afterlife, and then he gets the one-up, and then he gets to come back or something, right?
You got a whole murder wall going on.
Just real quick, Pete, I talked to some rabbits, and they actually want you to start calling it a Pete hole. They're calling it a Pete hole because you're in it so often, it's not really a rabbit hole anymore. It's a Pete hole.
Those poor rabbits that I've kicked out of their home, I feel really bad about that.
Well, I would say, I think they got him. I think Matthew Patel won. It happens. Video games.
But what's the next episode? How do you move forward? Does Ramona have to battle her evil exes? Like, how does it work?
Anytime we encounter a loss, it takes a while to deal with it. And Pete, you're going through all 7 stages of grief, or 5 stages of grief simultaneously, I think. And they're all screaming out of your mouth.
They are Pete's 7 evil exes, his stages of grief.
Stages of grief.
He has to fight
but I think one thing that when I've been thinking about since I watched it is the name of the first book, Scott Pilgrim's Precious Little Life. And we get that highlighted in here a couple times. And I thought it was very sort of poignant that he dies at the end and they're like, it was a precious little life. Later.
R.I.P. Let's take a big step back because I do want to get your impressions of forgetting about the ending for a second.
Wait, we got to talk about what the fuck, how...
We can talk about at the end.
Yeah, we're going to go back to it. I'm sure there's more to talk about. I think at the end of the episode, we can talk about what we think is going to happen next, where the show is going. But I do want to get your impressions because this is still highly anticipated in anime, looks kind of like the video game a little bit. By the way, I know we said we were going to talk about the video game. We will get back to that.
We will.
Yes, we definitely will do that. Justin played through it. I'm stuck on level 2, but
Alex is having a problem defeating Lucas Lee.
I am. I got so close. But you know,
he is hard.
Here's my big problem. Just to talk about the game for a second, I'm bad at video games, and that's
turns out
that's their
turns
problem.
out. Yeah. And now it's my problem also.
Yeah, we will get back and talk about that. But
Justin blew through it like no problem.
You did. God damn it. But this has elements of the video game. This has elements of the movie, obviously in the voice, as well as some of the stuff that happens here. It has in the books, but even the plot, the way the plot rolls out in the first episode is remixed. There's new things with Gideon and the evil exes in this episode as well. So what was, putting aside feelings about the end, if you can, what was your overall impression of the episode through the animation, the music, the voice? Well,
first, let's start with the opening and the opening credits and all the fun.
The Scott Pilgrim flip. Take it away.
Yeah. I mean, come on. I love the opening credits. You kind of get this Street Fighter 2 kind of feel to it, which was great. And then the kind of like Super Mario credits for the actual start of the episode.
Super Mario Brothers 3 titles from for Precious Little Life.
I thought that was just really, I was so excited for this. I was very geeked, and they did a great job of kind of channeling that excitement with the opening credits and all the kind of nerdy things that sprinkled in there. I think the animation is awesome. It's just such a cool look. I love, it feels like the characters we know and love, but just kind of like a little upgraded. I think it has such a cool tone and feel to it. I loved the beginning of the episode.
Well, and I think just like it's my feeling in watching, like you're saying, Pete, through the opening credits and once it got going was just like pure joy. Yes. Just like it's like elation watching this. And it's great because I think they do a great job of taking the comics as a source material, but using anime, pacing, the way we do sort of like the way the voices are laid in. It's very different than other cartoons. It feels like a classic anime from like the 90s or early 2000s, I feel like. The fades, there's like pauses in there that American animated shows would never leave that much air in it. And they're doing the pauses and stuff here. I love all that. There is a lot of video game reference, especially in the backgrounds they're walking through and stuff. It's so good. And then on top of that, the music is awesome.
Oh my God. They did all new music.
Yeah, so this is songs by Amanaguchi, who did the music for the video game. I think when we were talking about the movie, I said they did music for the movie, which is not true. That was for the video game, so they brought them back from that. And then also you have the theme song, which is Bloom by Nekritaki, I think is the name of the band. And It's perfect. Like, it's a perfect anime
so
opening. It absolutely works, setting up all of the characters and the situations. And I agree with you guys. It's just really nice to see this blending of the movie and the show. I thought that was very, very fun. And I just overall really like the look of it. I like the video games references that are in there. I think the pacing took me a little bit to get used to because I'm not used to that anime pacing.
Yeah.
It changes the rhythm of the jokes.
Oh yeah.
Huge. Well, but it reminds me of like being a kid. I grew up on the Canadian border in New York State, and we would watch like Astro Boy. It's something that no one in my elementary school was like, "What are you talking about?" And I was like, "I don't know. Is it a dream? Did I have a dream?" And it's that vibe, and it really took me back there in such a great way. And then but they're also doing very modern things as well, like all the camera perspectives during when they're playing at the beginning. I thought was so good, so well done. You get super close up to them, very comic booky, but the movement just feels so fresh at the same time.
And it's interesting because I was like getting used to like, okay, this is what this new flavor is going to be. And then I was kind of like, oh, are they going to do that cool shot of them playing with that long carpet thing? No, they did completely different stuff. So it feels really fresh, even though it's something we're very used to, which is impressive. I also like in the kind of opening credits, you got a Ramona kiss there. It seems like this is really much, Scott and Ramona kind of like forward.
There's the Scott Ramona kiss, correct me if I'm wrong, Justin, but that's directly from the beginning of the video game, right?
Yes. And there's a lot of, I don't know if you'll ever get the chance to continue on.
I'll do it. I'll power through.
Maybe. Do you have the skills? Do you have the button mashing skills?
Definitely
is
not.
the question. Yeah.
Oh.
You're sort of like a Matthew Patel
you.
from the comics. You know what I mean?
What?
Not the show. That's
because I'm
TV
so
show.
good at singing.
Yeah. And you have demonic hipster girlfriends.
Yeah, they're just off screen hanging out.
Yeah, well, I know. I can hear them. The way I forget what we were talking about, but
well, I want to talk about the kind of opening sequence when we get the dream desert.
Oh, okay.
The Ramona.
Like we just talked about the opening sequence.
Yeah.
No. I'm talking about what I really liked is when he's kind of walking through, and in his kind of like shadow, you see like these stars and kind of like a night sky, and it's just like a couple moments, but man, it's so cool. The complexity to what they're doing is really impressive.
Yeah, you also get to see this is I don't even know if this is an Easter egg, but you see the two holes of the moon in the background when they're going through the subspace highway, which is, you don't know what that is if you haven't read the books or seen the movie. Yeah. I did want to ask like a broader question though that I wrote down at this point is, can you watch this without having watched the movie or read Scott Pilgrim? And I know that's a near impossible question for the three of us to answer.
Coming from a guy in a Scott Pilgrim t-shirt, okay, let's really get into this.
No, I'm curious. I don't know. I don't know the answer because I can't divorce myself.
Of course you can. I just don't think it's going to be as rich as an enjoying experience. But I think, anybody can walk up and kind of understand what's happening here. It's just, all the extra stuff I don't think you'll be able to get.
Well, and I think you can. It's just because it is faster. We get like the whole volume basically in this episode, half-hour episode. So it moves very fast. I think it feels like we're missing things because we expect them. But I think from a casual viewer just coming in, it just feels like a story that's moving at its natural pace. And I think whoever is watching this for the first time isn't going to be quite so outraged at the end of the episode.
Yeah.
So like it's
cool. Yeah, it could be enjoyable for you.
This Matthew Patel show looks pretty cool.
I did really love how Ramona, the tone, she was just like, "Wake up, dude."
Ramona's Tona.
Yeah, Ramona's Tona is really just fun when she's kind of skates by him. And that first kind of interaction, we know how it went, but it was completely different. Also, his like, "Is this a dream?" question was hilarious and new. So I was just like, "Oh my god, that's so funny."
Can I say something controversial that Pete's going to get very mad at me about?
Ooh, please. Fun.
Yes. I don't know if all the voices are working for me, and I know.
Wow.
Justin, you said that this is part and parcel with that sort of style of anime, which I have not watched a lot of, so maybe it does work better if you're aware of that. But Mary Elizabeth Winstead, who I love, she's great. I don't know if it's really working for me exactly with Ramona, to be honest.
Yeah, it's funny just from a character perspective. The Scott Pilgrim, I think, is working really well. Like the voice combined with the anime, I think, is great. More so than the movie. I famously was saying that like Michael Cera doesn't feel like Scott Pilgrim in the movie, but it feels very right here. I agree with you. The Mary Elizabeth Winstead feels a little off for some reason. I think she seems much older now.
Yeah,
her voice just sounds older, so it doesn't quite key in.
Are you saying the voice doesn't match the image? Is that what you're saying? Is that
she just sounds older than the character?
This
Ramona
is
in this
not.
show.
Again,
how dare you?
Mary Elizabeth Winstead, great, love her in everything. But as you get older, your voice changes. And
who gives a shit?
It's called puberty, Pete. You're gonna love it.
See, this is
when it hits. But this isn't like this is just talking about it.
You're seriously you hear her voice and you say, "Ooh, that sounds too old for the character she's playing."
Yes.
No. Well, I'm not saying like that's my takeaway from the number one takeaway from the episode, but we're talking about it from a point of like, hey, here are some things that hit us while we were watching it, and like that is part of it. I do think the style of the way they lay the voices in is a little different, and it calls attention to them more than I think it would be in a more. So
let me just get this straight. All these amazing actors come back for this show, and you would recast her because you're like, "Oh, sorry, you sound too old."
I would not.
Go fuck yourself. What the fuck are you saying right now?
No, I would. Sorry, to be clear, I would euthanize her. Is what I'd say. Like I would put her down.
Oh, do you mean youth? Like make her younger? Euthanize her?
Yes. Put her down in age is what I'm saying.
Yes, nice. Like a lame horse.
Voices change.
Take her
it's
out
okay.
back and
Pete. We're not attacking anybody.
It seems like you are. But we had all these amazing people come back, except for Bill Hader for some fucking reason, and you're like,
he got older. His voice got old, and they were like, "I'm sorry, you sound like too much of a crankety old man at this point, Bill Hader. So you can't come back to say these two lines."
You sound like one of these assholes who's saying like Kevin Conroy couldn't play the voice of Batman anymore because he sounds too old. Who gives a fucking shit? That's the voice of
he had a
Batman.
He had a consistent,
very
voice
consistent.
He
started the role when he was older. Pete, how many caffeine pills have you taken? Are we approaching a Jesse Spano?
This was a crazy episode. I'm fired up. I'm sorry. All right.
I'm gonna no, but
can't believe the fucking ending.
I'm sorry. I think it's fair to talk about the voice work on this animated show versus, for example, I think the actress's name is Ella Wong, right? Who's doing Knives Chow. Great, like perfect for the show. They also really, really play up the anime aspects of Knives Chow in particular. I thought that was the character that worked almost the best for me. Also, Kieran Culkin as Wallace Wells. I think that crushes it. That completely nails it. That's very consistent. So there's some things that I think like are a little stronger than others. It's okay. Not everything needs to be great or terrible all the time. There are shades in between. Pete.
Well, I would also say it's a little different when you're coming back to a role you've already played. You're not performing it as much as calling it back from an acting perspective. And so I think that changes the performance because I think there's less probably pressure for her to be like, okay, inhabit this character when it's like, well, you already did it. You already are it. So just say the lines kind of a thing.
Well, and I do think a difference that we're getting, and mind you, there's only like 2 scenes that are completely fresh and new, but Jason Schwartzman is, I think, playing Gideon Graves totally differently here than he did in the movie. Like he is 100% leading into Dr. Claw.
I was just going to say Dr. Claw. Exactly.
And it's great.
Exactly.
I love it.
Yes,
but like the rhythm of his speech and everything is much more like I'm an anime villain right 100%. Now versus the way that he played it in the movie.
I kind of like the choices that she's making. The fact like it seems like she's kind of like not into Scott in the beginning and kind of over it a little bit. I like the nuances in her voice and what she's doing.
Well, okay, if we're jumping back to that, because I know you're still upset about what I said about Mary Elizabeth Winstead, I thought the romance between Scott and Ramona was way stronger in this episode. I actually disagree with you, Pete. I think she seems way more into it, and I think they've laid in the relationship between Scott and Ramona. I wrote down a note somewhere in here like, wow, Ramona actually seems to like Scott. She seems into the date. She seems into the idea of going out on a date. It's way less like, she seems in the book, she's more like, sure, this is something to do, I guess, and seems to be not interested in it. The romance was very strong throughout this episode.
I agree. And you see her be charmed by him over the course of it, as opposed to, like you're saying in the book, she was just like, well, he said he dreamed about me, so I guess we'll date. And in this, I buy the romance here. And I thought the no sex scene was just great. All that whole progression was so really nicely done, I thought.
Yeah, that was really good. The date, all the awkward talk, her not knowing about X-Men or anything like that.
Oh, that was hysterical.
No tea. I missed the tea joke from the movie. That's such a good joke.
Yeah.
There are other kinds of tea. It's such a funny one-liner. And we moved past it here. Fine. Very small.
Also, like all the different kinds of tea that she has that she names off was also really fun.
Well, also helping the romance, and I think this was new. I don't remember this from either version, but when Ramona and Scott kiss, they see sparks, which feels like
and
a
he
very
calls it
animated
out.
thing.
Yeah, that was very
I
cool.
really like that as well. So again, I think I really bought the romance between them a lot more. It was interesting. I felt like they downplayed the Knives Chow of it all in order to amp up the Ramona of it all. You felt that as well?
Yeah, I mean, Wallace says you got to cut off with your fake girlfriend. You know what I mean? And there's like a lot of extra time like they have. I feel like they did a good job of playing that just right.
I feel like they downplayed it here because it's becoming a much larger part of the villain plot. Like we get all the Gideon scene, the two Gideon scenes and the Matthew Patel part of it, where they're talking about Knives, like he's cheating on her, and like that feels like it's going to play sort of more of a plot point rather than this like love triangle emotional point. Like
I don't know how Scott's dead.
That's true. Beyond the afterlife triangle.
Did you want to tear apart Kim Pine at all, Zelvin? Before
no one's tearing apart anything.
The only bad part of the show is Mary Elizabeth Winstead.
Oh my God, you're such a fucking asshole.
I don't think that.
It's crazy.
Sarcasm.
Like that.
Oh,
you're
sarcasm.
so good. Alex, you're so good at pressing Pete's buttons, but you're so bad at pressing the buttons on the Switch to be good at the Scott Pilgrim game.
Oh man, if only I could play Pete like a video game, I would crush it.
Just watch. That's what basically this job is. It's like, Pete, to continue, blink, blink, blink. Yes.
I did like that moment, though, with Scott was like, oh, sarcasm. I thought that was fun a bit.
But getting back to Gideon, there's a show that on Netflix called Miraculous, or the Ladybug superhero show that my kids watch. And I feel like the Gideon in this show.
Yeah, my kids.
I watched plenty of it with them.
Yeah. Are you
sometimes
you ship Ladybug and Cat Noir, Justin?
That's literally the entire story of the show. So it's if you don't ship that or you're shipping something else, I don't know what you're watching. Anyway, thank you for knowing Cat Noir.
Yeah.
But I feel like the Gideon is straight up like the villain from that. Just standing in a room saying evil things to himself.
I love that. I love that addition. It threw me for a little bit when they put that in there at the beginning, because it does change things for the viewer here, knowing about the evil exes. You get to see Roxy in here as well, so it's not necessarily a surprise of like evil exes also means a girl, a woman.
Yep.
So they're definitely laying all of that up front, but to the point that you're making, Justin, I think it makes it way more anime and leads into if you have the villain coming in every episode and being like, next time, Pilgrim, next time. Yeah.
And that's great. That's so satisfying. Let's talk about
next time he's dead.
That's a good point. This has been a fun podcast. I guess it's over. The changes we talked a little bit about the Sonic cartoon joke, which I thought was a great 1-to-1 for the Pac-Man. A good update, like it hits. It's really funny. We get Columbo reruns, but the biggest thing is the shocking amount of Netflix promotion in this Netflix animated show.
Yeah, there's a lot. They spend a lot of time on that. I would suggest in the more modern version of Netflix, if you search for hot guys, something's going to come up.
Yeah, Bridgerton.
Wow.
But we get some references to Lucas Lee in here in that scene as well. We get to see a bunch of his movies, which I don't remember if they were all in the book, but they were definitely in the movie. The game is over too. It continues to be just such a funny.
That's
Ooh, the game is over too.
Ooh.
It's over a second time. That sounds fun.
It's great. So fun.
Yeah.
Oh, that was fun. I was just surprised. The first Netflix reference, I was like, oh, that's smart. That's cool. And then when they said it 3 times again in the next 90 seconds, I was like, okay, this surely
cool.
you know this is too much.
A couple of other. Oh yeah, go ahead, Pete.
I just really like the music changes. It's a fun kind of fresh
From
thing.
the movie, you mean?
Yeah, from the movie to this, and I also really like the kind of vibe changes a little bit more, which is interesting. And I'm more excited about the music battles if we're going to get there because Scott's dead. But I think it could be very exciting to see the kind of changes musically that are going to happen with each episode. Also, just Kim yelling out, "We are Sex Bob-Omb," just is such an exciting, fun thing that I'm glad that they are still leaning into that because it's one of my favorite parts of the show.
My very stupid thing, which I've mentioned on previous episodes, is I'm still thrown by the fact that Sex Bob-Omb is a good band because from the comics, my impression was like, yeah, they're all right, but they're legitimately a good band. At the New York Comic Con panel, when he was asked about it, Brian Lee O'Malley was like, no, I think they are good. And that clearly comes through here. You have people nodding and enjoying their music in the final scene before Matthew attacks. So it's fine. I like the music, but it's still.
You'd rather have bad music. That's a really
there's
funny
a part
note.
of me that's it wouldn't work for the show. Like it wouldn't work for the show, and it wouldn't work for the movie if they were bad. But there is definitely a part of me that's still like, no, they're not good.
But I feel like Brian Lee O'Malley's nostalgia and sort of all our cultural nostalgia is such a big part of Scott Pilgrim in every aspect. Mm-hmm. So, and when you're doing something that is sort of rooted in like, remember this place or this thing or this event was awesome, it has to be awesome. Like when you're in a band like this, maybe you are bad in a larger sense, but when you do a show and the audience is into it, you're the best band in the fucking world. And so I feel like that's what we want them to be all the time. And it's just the right tone, to Pete's point, of just being this like fun indie vibe. The songs are just like a couple phrases over and over again. And they're like, shit, let's play it again. Let's play it again. And they do it. Like, it's like, you're in love with this, you have one good song, and you just play the shit out of it.
Okay, so let me get this straight, Zalman. When he's sitting by the door waiting for the package, and then Ramona is there, and he opens the door, and she goes, "Sonic guy?" You're like, oh, that voice is garbage. That whole moment is ruined for you?
It's like nails on a chalkboard, yeah.
Oh, fuck you.
No, I don't think that. I don't know how many times I can say that. Like,
he likes the romance.
I like the romance. I like Mary Elizabeth.
But that whole bit that she's doing
just sounds like
hysterical.
A decrepit old crone through her voice. It sounds like an old witch. Like I went to a door and an old witch was like, "Come here, Sonny, I've got candy."
Do you understand that
Sonic guy?
Yeah. That was the other thing. Like all those witches cackles she threw in, it didn't work for the character.
Yeah, very added. Now, Pete, you can understand an older woman like Ramona being into a younger man.
Oh my God.
You love that.
You're such a dick, man. She's an unbelievable actress and does unbelievable work. And the fact that you can sit there and be like, no, her voice is too old drives me fucking insane.
All I'm saying is it's time for Mary Elizabeth Winstead to retire.
Such a fucking asshole.
Sorry. For a comic book club, I'm Justin Tyler. This is Pete LePage Winstead. And Alex Mumble Thumbs Zalbin.
Mumble Thumbs, I love it.
Oh God, I'm really looking forward to 8 episodes of assuring you that I like Mary Elizabeth Winstead as an actress.
Yeah, exactly.
I
would send a
also
card.
I would
send a card.
And for the fact that we were getting things updated, it was also kind of funny that it went, instead of an email that he skimmed, it was an old school letter. And I was like, oh, we went back in time instead of forward for that bit. That was interesting.
Yeah. Oh, there was, speaking of going back in time, and not to keep talking about this New York Comic Con battle, but there was a very specific question. Somebody was like, hey, Honest Ed's closed. Are we going to see Honest Ed's at all in the show? That's where the fight happens in volume 4, I think, with Todd, where they have the race through Honest Ed's, the terrifying, enormous store. And Brian Lee O'Malley was like, well, it kind of takes place in Scott Pilgrim time. Like, there's no specific time for Toronto. But right after they have the night together, Scott is walking along in the street, and he passes by Honest Ed's, and it all glows
Yeah.
up. So I was like, oh, that's a cute
That
little
was cool.
Easter egg. We'll
Yeah.
see, I guess, if it shows up again in the show.
Yeah, we don't know.
Couple of other notes of things that I really liked that I wrote down. Oh, when they get to the party and he turns to see where Stephen, Kim, and Neil are, and they've all disappeared, and there's dotted lines around them.
Yeah.
Very fun.
That was good.
How about the OJ and cola? Because that was yuck.
Oh
yuck.
my God, the mix of OJ and
juiced.
cola.
He's juiced on sugar, that guy.
Gross.
No wonder he can't control himself.
Yeah. Space subways, I totally get it. Very funny line as well. I don't think that was in the book, right?
No, Subspace Highway.
Yeah, Subspace Highway, but Scott keeps calling them space subways.
Right, I got you.
In the show.
I haven't heard that before.
Yes, which was very fun. Nice updating of the whole meta commentary with Scott saying, my last job is a long story filled with sighs. Maybe we can get into it in a later episode. Very happy to see that stuff stays. I know we mentioned this earlier. I hope Scott Pilgrim enjoys the last few days of his precious little life. Good delivery from Jason Schwartzman.
Love it.
There.
I thought, just talking about the fight, the leading up to the fight felt a little slow to me. It felt strange. Almost like they were like sort of like, wait, pay attention. This is going to be different. And then the fight was actually really fast. It happened like, like when someone talks about like an extreme car accident or something, they're like, just like that, it was over. And then you're sort of left with just the change jangling on the ground. And I was like, whoa, they tricked us. They got us with that.
They did. Also, I love the moment where Patel shows up and is like, Scott Pilgrim, and he's like, depends on who's asking. I thought that was a fun little update to how that normally goes.
Yeah, that was good. It was also surprising that Crash and the boys weren't there. There was also a very funny conversation in the background. I think it was Young Neil and Kim, and Young Neil was like, "We can't do that. Crash was filmed in Toronto, and that's a great film."
So
I was like, "What? What are we talking about?" But very funny. I loved. I think maybe one of my favorite things of the episode that made me so happy as a fan of Scott Pilgrim was getting the flashback to Ramona dating Matthew, which is something we did not get in the movie at all. And it felt like, I mean, it wasn't panels directly pulled out of the comic, but it was, I think, at least modeled on that stuff. So I thought that was great. That just gives us kind of necessary information about these relationships that I really appreciated. Love the Street Fighter style fight scene. Scott versus
the bar at the top of the screen and stuff. I love that.
I feel like we're gonna get a lot of that stuff. It's very fun.
And what did you think about Scott only leaving behind $2.10 or whatever it is in Canadian?
That makes sense. He's pretty broke, so I thought the amount of coins was kind of hilarious.
Wait, do you think that's just the money he had in his pocket, or is that a value on his personality and soul?
Yeah, value on his life, I think.
That's how I always took it, is like whatever amount you leave or items, that's how valuable you are.
100%.
Also,
I mean, famously, when you play a video game like River City Ransom or the Scott Pilgrim game that Alex is stumbling through, when you beat a larger villain, you get more money.
Yeah. I also thought it was interesting that we set up early on, Gideon, when talking about Scott, says, they were like, oh, he's a great fighter. So I was like, all right, cool. There isn't this surprise, like, oh, this guy can also fight.
I think that was when we reviewed the movie, I was like, what? We need to set this up better. And I think just that line alone was like, this makes sense.
Again, as a comics purist, I got to disagree with you guys. I love the fact that it comes out of nowhere that he's a great fighter, because he seems like such kind of a loser for most of the book to have to be like, oh yeah, also he's the best fighter in the province, I thought. I don't know.
Well, in the book, though, it comes out of nowhere at a different time.
Sure.
It's earlier in the book. So I agree. I think that works also because it feels like a funny separate thing, and it's not so tied in with the main plot. The idea that, but at the same time, we found out he's a great fighter when he's being attacked, which is the main story engine of this entire show, the project. That feels like too much at once.
Yeah. So now we're back to the ending here. So let's talk about it again. Given that Scott is presumably dead, we end with the shot of Ramona looking at his coins left there. Speculation. What do you think's next? How are you feeling about this? What's going to happen?
Please let it be a dream sequence where he wakes up or something. I mean, or I want him to be in like the limbo and he get a life or something. It can't end like this for Scott, right? I mean,
no, she can just frame that change and put it on her wall and live her life. I mean, she's so close to death. Like,
you fucking asshole, man. Don't laugh at that.
You laughed.
It was funny. Justin, what do you think is going to happen? What's your speculation here?
I think we're going to get some sort of return of Scott. It would be, if this was a big swing, it would be an even bigger swing if he's gone for the rest of the season. Though the title is Takes Off, so that's like, bye, I'm taking off.
Yeah, taking off. Death is the ultimate taking off.
That's
taking
right.
a nice little break there.
The ultimate Irish goodbye.
Yeah, if you don't have any more sick days, you can just die.
Wow, spoken like a true HR professional. Well, listen, I feel like in estimation, the show probably won. Did they beat us this episode? Seems like
This show definitely beat us.
Yeah, definitely beat us.
I'm so tied in. I haven't watched ahead. I'm literally going to press play on the next episode immediately after we finish recording this so that I can find out what happens next.
Yeah,
Pete,
I mean, there are other episodes, right? I mean, it's not just one.
I mean, having watched ahead, this is a little bit of a spoiler. There's 7 more episodes, but they're all blank. Like it's black screen the entire time.
You got to watch the whole half an hour though, just in case.
Just in case something pops up. Yes, there are 7 more episodes after this in the season for 8 episodes total. Obviously, we're going to talk about all of them. We'll see how much more screaming there is. But in the meantime, if you'd like to support this
real quick before you move on. Leading into this, we talked a lot about like what do we want to change, and I was a big proponent of let's get Kim Pine more involved here. Maybe that's a relationship. I feel like the way this episode ended upsets every single one of those predictions. I feel like, Pete, you were like, maybe Knives is who Scott's gonna be with. I feel like now we're just like we're white knuckling it to this raging bull, this bucking bronco that we're trying to hold on to now.
Yeah, pretty exciting to get into something and just not know what's going to happen after reading it and seeing it multiple times.
I would like to. Yeah, that's the thing though. Is like, as a fan, I was having the best time, and then I was fucking furious at the end. You know what I mean? So, like, I'm hoping it's going to be like they do in the comics where they do, oh, you paying attention? Okay, now we're, going again. But, man, you can't just do that to us. You know what I mean?
They did, Pete. They did it specifically to you.
Yeah.
Anyway, if you'd like to support this podcast and all the podcasts we do, patreon.com/Comic Book Club. Also, we do a live show every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. to Facebook and YouTube. Come hang out. We love to shout about Scott Pilgrim with you. Apple, Spotify, Android, or the app of your choice to subscribe, listen, and follow the show at Comic Book Live on Twitter/X, Comic Book Club Live on TikTok and Instagram, comicbookclublive.com for this podcast and many more. And we'll get you next time, Scott. Next time.
Wow.
Very good. But Pete,
can you get old for what you were trying to do? You're way too old for this. Why don't you go die?